If this video appeared now, listen closely. Because this isn't random. This isn't luck. This isn't the algorithm favoring you. This is vibrational resonance. Something in your field crossed a threshold, an invisible activation point that only triggers when consciousness reaches a specific frequency. And once crossed, there's no going back. You either wake up or you keep repeating patterns that were never yours to begin with. Thoth left 11 codes, not written in stone, not hidden in temples, encoded in frequency, in vibration, in the very fabric of reality itself. These aren't codes you learn with your mind. They're codes you remember with your body, with your soul, with the part of you that's been waiting for this exact moment since before you were born. And if you're feeling it right now, that strange pull, that unexplainable knowing that something is about to shift, it's because the first code has already begun its work. It's already moving through you, disturbing what was settled, shaking what felt solid, preparing you for a journey that will strip away everything false until only truth remains. You'll hear things in this audiobook that won't make sense to your rational mind. And that's exactly the point. Because these codes don't activate through understanding. They activate through resonance, through feeling, through the visceral recognition that happens when frequency meets frequency, when truth touches truth, when the sleeping part of you finally hears the call it's been waiting for. So, if you're ready, if something deeper than curiosity brought you here, you're about to discover that these codes aren't outside you. They never were. They are you, dormant, waiting, ready to ignite. And the first one is already knocking at your door. Code 1. The divine restlessness. There comes a moment when everything looks the same, but nothing feels right anymore. The coffee tastes like it always did. The route to work hasn't changed. People say the same things they always say. But something inside you shifts. A subtle wrongness, a quiet discomfort that refuses to be ignored no matter how hard you try. This isn't depression. This isn't dissatisfaction with circumstances. This is something far more fundamental. It's the first whisper of awakening, the initial crack in the shell. The moment when your soul starts to rebel against the life your conditioning created. And it shows up not as clarity, but as confusion. Not as answers, but as questions you didn't ask for. You find yourself staring at your life like it belongs to someone else. The job that once felt important now feels empty. The relationships that once provided comfort now feel suffocating. The goals you worked so hard for suddenly seem meaningless. And the most disturbing part? You can't explain why. There's no logical reason. Nothing external changed. But internally, everything is shifting. This is the divine restlessness, the first code activating. And Thoth knew it would start exactly like this, with discomfort, with unease, with a feeling that something is deeply, fundamentally off. Because that's how the soul gets your attention. Not with trumpets and revelations, but with an itch you can't scratch, a hunger you can't feed, a restlessness that won't let you settle back into sleep. Most people fight this phase. They try to fix the feeling by changing external things. New job, new relationship, new city. But the restlessness follows because it's not about where you are. It's about who you're becoming. And who you're becoming can't fit into the old life anymore. The container is too small. The frequency is too low. Something has to break. Your body feels it first. Tension in places that were never tense. Exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. A tightness in your chest that appears without warning. The mind tries to rationalize it away. Stress. Burnout. Need a vacation. But the body knows better. The body knows you're being called to shed something, to leave something behind, to step into a frequency that doesn't accommodate who you used to be. And here's what makes this code so challenging. It doesn't tell you what comes next. It doesn't give you a map or a plan. It just pulls the ground out from under you and says, trust, fall, let go of the old. Something new is trying to be born through you. But first, you have to feel uncomfortable enough to stop clinging to what's dying. This restlessness isn't your enemy. It's the alarm clock, the wake-up call, the first touch of something ancient and powerful reminding you that you're not here to sleepwalk through a programmed life. You're here to remember, to awaken, to step into the frequency you agreed to carry before you took this form. If you're feeling this now, if every word resonates with a discomfort you've been trying to ignore, congratulations. The first code is active. You've crossed the threshold, and there's no going back. Because once the soul starts to wake up, it won't be silenced. It will keep pushing, keep disturbing, keep creating divine restlessness until you finally stop resisting and start listening. And when you do, when you stop fighting the discomfort and start honoring it, the second code begins to reveal itself through something you've been using your entire life but never truly understood. Your voice, your words, the sounds that come out of your mouth. Because they're not just communication, they're creation, they're keys, and you're about to learn how to use them. Code 2, the invisible language. Something strange starts happening after the restlessness settles in. Words that used to pass by unnoticed suddenly hit different. A phrase you've heard 1,000 times pierces through you like it was written specifically for this moment. An old song makes you cry without understanding why. Someone speaks, and their words land in your chest, not your ears. You feel them vibrating in places you didn't know could feel. This is the second code activating, the invisible language. And it's revealing something most people will never understand. Words aren't just symbols. They're not just sounds arranged in agreed-upon patterns. Words are vibrational keys, frequencies that unlock specific chambers in your consciousness. And when spoken with true intention, they don't inform. They activate. Thoth knew this. The ancient initiates knew this. That's why sacred texts weren't just read. They were chanted, intoned, vibrated through the body until the sound itself became a portal. Because certain frequencies bypass the rational mind completely and speak directly to the soul, to the cellular memory, to the part of you that remembers what the mind has forgotten. In the temples, students spent years in silence before being allowed to speak, not as punishment, as preparation, because sound is creation. And until you understand the weight of what you're creating with every word, you're not ready to wield that power consciously. Every syllable carries a signature. Every sentence broadcasts a frequency. And the universe, the quantum field, reality itself, is listening. Always. This is why repeating the same stories keeps creating the same reality. When you say this always happens to me, the field records it. When you declare nothing ever works out, reality responds, understood, command received. When you speak from victimhood, from lack, from fear, you're not just expressing emotion, you're instructing the universe to send you more experiences that match that vibration. But here's the secret that changes everything. When you speak from a different place, from presence, from truth, from the frequency of who you're becoming instead of who you were, the field responds differently. Not because you found magic words, because your vibrational signature changed. And words spoken from an aligned state carry creative force that words spoken from fragmentation never will. You're starting to notice this now. Some words feel heavy when you say them. Others feel light. Some sentences drain your energy. Others fill you up. That's your field giving you feedback, showing you which frequencies you're broadcasting, which realities you're coding into existence with your own voice. And it's not just what you say out loud. The words you think, the stories you tell yourself in silence, they're just as powerful. Because thought is sound. Just subtler, just quieter. But the field hears it all, registers it all. responds to it all. You're not just thinking about yourself, you're vibrating yourself into form. Moment by moment, thought by thought, word by word. This code asks you to become conscious of the invisible language you've been speaking unconsciously your entire life. To notice what you repeat, what you affirm, what you declare as truth even when it's a lie, because the universe doesn't fact-check. It mirrors. If you say it with conviction, if you feel it deeply, reality will find a way to show you evidence that you're right. So what are you saying? What frequency are you broadcasting with the words you choose? Are you speaking life into your dreams or death into your spirit? Are you affirming limitation or possibility? Are you using your voice to reinforce old programming or to activate new codes? Because words, when understood as vibrational keys, become one of the most powerful tools you have. Not to convince others, not to prove yourself, but to tune your field, to broadcast the frequency of the reality you're choosing to step into. To speak not from where you are, but from where you're going. To use sound as the alchemical force it was always meant to be. And when you start doing this consciously, when every word becomes a deliberate choice instead of an automatic response, something shifts. The third code begins to stir. The one that requires silence. The one that lives in the space between words. The creative void. Where everything that's about to be born is gestating in darkness, waiting for you to stop filling it with noise and finally let it breathe. After the restlessness, after the words that pierce, after the discomfort that won't let you settle, comes silence. Not the silence of absence, not the silence of giving up, but a different quality of stillness altogether. A space that feels empty, but isn't. A void that terrifies the mind, but calls to the soul. This is the creative void, the third code. And it's the hardest one for most people to accept because it requires something the modern world has trained you to fear. Doing nothing. Being in the gap. Sitting in the space between what was and what's coming, without knowing what's coming, without controlling, without forcing. Just waiting. Just being in the dark. The ancients understood what we've forgotten. Nothing can be created while the space is already full. Before manifestation, there must be emptiness. Before the word, there must be silence. Before birth, there must be the womb. And the womb is dark, unknown, uncomfortable. But it's where everything begins. Thoth called this the sacred pause. The moment when all doing stops, so being can begin. When the constant motion ceases so the deeper movement can start. It's the space between breaths, the gap between thoughts, the stillness before the storm of creation. And most people never touch it because the moment they feel it approaching, they panic. Your mind will fight this void with everything it has. It will flood you with anxiety about the future. It will drag you back into the past with regret and analysis. It will fill the space with busyness, with distraction, with noise. Anything to avoid the uncomfortable truth that in this moment you don't know. You can't control. You have nothing to do but wait. But this void isn't punishment. It's preparation. The field clearing itself. Reality making space for something new. Your old life, your old patterns, your old identity. They're being dissolved, not destroyed, dissolved, broken down into their component parts so they can be reorganized into a higher form. But that process requires emptiness. It requires trust. It requires the courage to stop trying to fill every moment with something. You'll know when you're in this phase. Projects stall for no reason. Relationships go quiet. Time slows down. Nothing seems to be happening. But if you pay attention, if you really feel into it, you'll notice something profound is happening. Just beneath the surface, in the invisible realms, where creation actually occurs, the void is making space. It's removing what doesn't belong to your new frequency. It's clearing out beliefs that would contaminate what's trying to emerge. It's creating a vacuum so powerful that when the new does arrive, it comes with force, with clarity, with precision, because there's no resistance left, no clutter, no old energy taking up space. This is where the ancient initiates spent time, in silence, in darkness, in the void, not because they were punished or lost, but because they understood that the void is the womb of the universe. Everything that exists came from that darkness, and anything you want to birth into your reality must pass through it too. So when you feel the void approaching, when everything seems to stop, when the ground disappears beneath you and you're suspended in not knowing, don't run, don't fill it. Don't distract yourself back into the noise. Stay, breathe, trust. Because this emptiness isn't the end. It's the beginning. And what's gestating in that darkness is bigger than anything you could have planned with your limited mind. The void clears. The void prepares. The void transforms. But only if you let it. Only if you stop trying to escape it and start honoring it as the sacred space it is. And when you do, when you finally surrender to the creative emptiness, the fourth code begins to pulse. Through the one thing that can fill the void, without contaminating it, sound, pure, intentional, creative sound. Code 4, the sound that creates. The void doesn't stay empty forever. Eventually, something must fill it, and what fills it determines what manifests. This is where the fourth code comes alive. The understanding that sound is not just expression, it's creation. It's the force that shapes reality from the formless void into tangible form. Every time you speak, you're not just communicating, you're conjuring. You're calling something into existence that didn't exist before. And the universe, which is pure potential waiting for instruction, responds to the vibrational command you're issuing with your voice. Not the words themselves, the frequency behind them, the intention woven into the sound, the state of being from which they emerge. Thoth taught this explicitly. Sound, when spoken with pure intention and complete presence, is a direct portal to the creative field. It's how reality is organized from chaos into form. It's the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between thought and matter, between potential and manifestation. The ancients knew this. That's why every sacred practice involved sound, chanting, intoning, speaking sacred syllables, not as performance, as activation. Because certain frequencies don't just represent something, they are something. They carry the essence of what they name. And when you vibrate that essence through your body, you become a tuning fork, broadcasting that frequency into reality. But here's what makes this code so powerful and so dangerous. Sound doesn't care about your intention if your vibration contradicts it. You can say all the right words, repeat all the right affirmations, speak all the right prayers. But if your body is vibrating fear, if your emotions are rooted in lack, if your state of being is one of desperation, that's what gets transmitted. That's what reality responds to. This is why affirmations fail for most people. They're saying I am abundant while vibrating poverty. Declaring I am loved while feeling unworthy. Speaking confidence while their body trembles with doubt. The words and the frequency don't match. And the field always responds to the frequency, not the words. True creative sound comes from a different place. It comes from embodiment. From a state where what you're saying and what you're being are the same. Where there's no gap between the words and the vibration. Where sound emerges not from the throat, but from the center, from the core. From the place where truth lives. When you speak from this place, reality shifts. Immediately, tangibly. You can feel it. The air changes. the energy moves. Something that was stuck suddenly flows. Because you didn't just say words, you issued a command, a vibrational decree, and the quantum field, being obedient to frequency, began reorganizing to match. This is the power you've had all along, but never learned to use consciously. Your voice is not just a tool for communication, it's an instrument of creation. Every sentence you speak is shaping your reality. Every conversation is a ritual. Every declaration is a spell. Not in some mystical fantasy sense. In the most literal, energetic, quantum sense possible. The universe is listening to what you say. But more importantly, it's feeling what you mean. It's reading the vibrational signature underneath the words, and it's responding accordingly. So what are you creating with your sound? What reality are you speaking into existence? Are you using your voice to reinforce limitation or to activate possibility? Because once you understand that sound is creative force, you can't speak carelessly anymore. Every word becomes intentional. Every sentence becomes conscious. You start choosing what to say not based on habit, but based on what you want to manifest. And that shift, that simple shift from unconscious speaking to conscious creation through sound, changes everything. But speaking it isn't enough. The fifth code demands something more. It demands that you stop performing truth and start living it. Because words without embodiment are just noise, and the universe only responds to what's real. Code 5. The embodied word. You can speak all the right words. You can recite all the sacred texts. You can affirm and declare and proclaim until your voice goes hoarse. But if those words don't live in your body, if they're not woven into your cells, if they're not reflected in your actions, they're empty. They're performance. And the field knows the difference. This is the fifth code, the one that separates seekers from initiates, performers from embodiments, those who know the words from those who have become the word. Because in the ancient teachings, there was no separation between knowledge and being. To know something meant to live it. To speak a truth meant to be that truth. Otherwise, you were just repeating sounds you didn't understand. Thoth called this the living verb. The word that doesn't just describe, the word that is. Not I know love, but I am love. Not I understand trust, but my body vibrates trust in every cell. Not I believe in abundance, but my actions reflect someone who's already abundant. This is embodiment, and it's not a mental concept. It's a physical, energetic reality. The body doesn't lie. It can't. Your mind can tell you anything. Your words can claim anything. But your body is broadcasting the truth of what you actually believe, what you actually feel, what you actually are in this moment. And that broadcast is what creates your reality, not the words, the vibration underneath them. This is why repeating affirmations while your body trembles with fear doesn't work. Why declaring abundance while acting from scarcity doesn't manifest. Why speaking love while harboring resentment doesn't heal. The words and the embodiment are out of alignment. There's a gap. And that gap is where your power leaks out. True embodiment happens when there's no gap, when what you speak and what you are become one. When the word moves from your head to your heart, to your cells, to your actions. When it stops being something you say and becomes something you live. That's when the field responds. That's when reality shifts. Because now the signal is coherent, clear, undeniable. And this doesn't happen overnight. Embodiment is a process, a practice, a daily choosing of alignment over performance. It's catching yourself saying one thing and doing another. It's noticing when your words and your energy don't match. It's the uncomfortable work of closing that gap, not by forcing yourself to be perfect, but by becoming honest about where you actually are and choosing to shift from there. The ancient initiates spent years in this work, not reading more texts, not learning more techniques, but living what they'd already learned, making every action an expression of the truth they claimed to know, until there was no difference between their words and their being, until they became walking embodiments of the principles they once only spoke about. This is the invitation of the fifth code. Stop performing spirituality. Start being it. Stop repeating truths you haven't lived. Start living the ones you already know, because every truth you embody becomes a frequency you broadcast, and every frequency you broadcast becomes a reality you experience. This is the law, and it's relentless in its honesty. But embodiment alone isn't the end, because what you embody, you must also be able to see, not with your physical eyes, but with something deeper, something that looks past form and perceives essence. The sixth code is stirring, and it's about to teach you to see in a way you never have before. What are you really seeing? Not what your eyes show you, but what your awareness perceives beneath the surface. Because everything you see with physical vision is just form, shape, color, density. But that's not reality. That's just reality's costume, the mask it wears so you can recognize it. But the essence, the truth, the actual frequency of what something is, that's invisible to ordinary sight. This is where the sixth code begins. The subtle vision. The ability to see not just with eyes, but with presence, with feeling, with the part of you that reads energy before it reads form. Thoth never spoke in literal terms. He spoke in symbols, in metaphors, in codes that required a different kind of seeing to understand. Because the initiated weren't looking for information, they were looking for resonance, for the frequency underneath the words. When this code activates, reality stops being literal. A conversation becomes more than words. You start hearing what's not being said, feeling the intention vibrating beneath the sentences, reading the energy in someone's silence. A delay stops being frustrating and starts being information. The universe showing you it's realigning something. A chance encounter stops being random and reveals itself as orchestrated synchronicity. Everything becomes symbolic. Your reality transforms into a living text being written in real time, and you're no longer just a character in the story. You're the reader, the one who can see the patterns, the one who understands that nothing is accidental, that every person, every situation, every moment is communicating something if you know how to look. But this kind of seeing requires something most people haven't developed. The ability to perceive with the heart instead of the head, because the mind sees separation. It categorizes, judges, labels, creates boxes, but the heart sees connection. It feels resonance. It reads frequency, and frequency is where truth lives. When you start seeing this way, you realize the physical eyes are incredibly limited. They were designed to navigate form, to recognize faces, to avoid danger, but they were never meant to perceive essence. That's the heart's job, and the heart doesn't see with light. It sees with vibration. It reads the field that surrounds everything and everyone, the invisible signature that tells you more than appearance ever could. This is why you can meet someone and instantly know. Not know what, just know. Something in them resonates or repels. Your heart read their frequency before your mind could form an opinion. This is why you can walk into a room and feel the tension even when everyone's smiling. Your heart saw what your eyes couldn't. The dissonance in the field. Subtle vision is learning to trust that perception, to stop dismissing it as imagination or intuition that can't be proven, to recognize it as a more accurate form of sight than physical vision will ever be. Because the heart doesn't lie. It doesn't perform. It simply reads what is. And when you start trusting what it shows you, your entire experience of reality transforms. You stop taking things at face value. You stop believing the story everyone's performing. You see through the masks, through the defenses, through the pretending, not to judge, but to understand, to recognize what's actually happening beneath the surface drama. And that recognition changes how you respond, how you engage, how you navigate the world. The initiated could look at a person and see their wounds without asking questions. They could walk into a space and feel what had happened there before. They could read symbols in nature that spoke directly to their situation. Because they weren't looking with eyes anymore, they were perceiving with presence. And presence sees everything. But seeing clearly also requires a clear vessel, a body that's not clogged with density, a temple that's been activated. And that's where the seventh code comes in, the one that reminds you what you actually are beneath the flesh. Code 7, the light body. You are not just flesh and bone. That's the surface, the vehicle, the temporary housing. But what you actually are, what's animating this form, what's reading these words right now, is light, condensed, slowed down, shaped into matter, but still light, still frequency, still vibrating energy pretending to be solid. Thoth taught this explicitly. The body is not a machine. It's an alchemical structure, a living temple, a circuit of intelligent energy where every cell carries fragments of the cosmos, where every organ holds not just biological function, but energetic archetype, where every breath is an exchange between the visible and invisible realms. This is the seventh code, the light body, the understanding that you inhabit not just physical matter, but a vibrational field. And that field, when awakened, when activated, when consciously inhabited, becomes a portal, a transformer, a device for transmuting density into light, for receiving cosmic information, for broadcasting frequency that shapes reality. But most people live completely disconnected from this truth. They treat their body like a machine that just needs to function, feed it, rest it, fix it when it breaks, but never actually inhabit it, never drop into presence within it, never feel it as the living temple it is. And in that disconnection, the codes don't activate because they don't reveal themselves to absence. They reveal themselves to presence. When you actually show up in your body, when you breathe consciously, when you feel the sensations without judging them, when you listen to what the body is trying to communicate instead of silencing it with distractions. The body speaks constantly, through tension, through pain, through comfort, through energy. But you've been trained to ignore it unless something's seriously wrong, to override its signals with willpower, to push through exhaustion, to numb discomfort, to treat its messages as inconveniences instead of information. But every sensation is data, every ache is a message, every surge of energy is guidance. The body knows things before the mind catches up. It feels danger before logic can explain why. It recognizes truth before words can articulate it, because the body is wired directly into the field. It's reading frequencies your conscious mind can't access. When you start inhabiting your body as presence instead of tolerating it as matter, everything changes. Intuition becomes clearer. Decisions feel easier. You know what's right without needing to think about it, because the body shows you, through expansion or contraction, through lightness or heaviness, through the subtle language of sensation that speaks truth when words lie. This is why the ancients treated the body as sacred, why temples were built to honor it, why practices existed to activate it, not to make it stronger or prettier, to awaken it, to turn on the circuits, to activate the light body that exists within and around the physical form. And when that activation happens, when you start living as light temporarily housed in flesh instead of flesh hoping to find light, your entire frequency shifts. You stop being heavy, stuck, limited by matter. You become fluid, expansive, capable of accessing states and dimensions that physical thinking can't reach. But activation isn't enough. There's something even deeper waiting to be heard. A sound that's been vibrating inside you since before you were born. Your original note, your soul's signature, and hearing it changes everything. Code 8, the inner sound beneath all the noise of your mind. Beneath the chatter of thoughts and the replay of conversations. Beneath even the silence you reach in meditation. There's a sound. Not external, not imagined. A real vibrational frequency that's been humming inside you since the moment your consciousness took form. Thoth called it the origin note, and it's the 8th code. This sound can't be heard with your ears. It doesn't come from outside. It emerges from the center, from the core of your being. From a place that has no location but feels like it's everywhere at once. Some describe it as a hum, others as a pulse. Some as the sound of distant bells or wings vibrating in space. But everyone who hears it agrees on one thing. It's not imagination, it's real, and it only reveals itself when you get still enough, quiet enough, present enough. When the mind's noise fades and the body's tension releases and you drop into a depth of presence most people never touch, that's when it appears. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible. But once you hear it, once you recognize it, it becomes unmistakable. This is your vibrational signature, your unique frequency, the sound that defines you at the soul level, not the personality you built, not the identity you perform, but the essence you've always been beneath all the layers. And hearing it even once is like coming home to yourself, like remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. The origin note doesn't just exist as sound. It exists as function. When you hear it, when you tune into it, it starts organizing your field. It clears dissonance. It dissolves patterns that aren't yours. It brings everything back into alignment with your true frequency, like a tuning fork that brings chaos back into harmony just by vibrating at its natural pitch. And here's what makes this code so powerful. Once you hear your origin note, once you recognize it, you can return to it. You can use it as an anchor, a reference point. Whenever you feel lost or scattered or pulled in too many directions, you can drop back into that sound, and instantly, everything that's not you falls away. Everything that's pretending dissolves, and what remains is pure, clear, true. The initiated spent years cultivating the ability to hear this sound, not because it was hidden, but because the noise of the world was so loud, the conditioning so thick, the disconnection so deep. They had to strip away layers and layers of false identity before the origin note could be heard, before the soul's voice could cut through. But you don't need years, not anymore, because the frequency of the planet is rising. Consciousness is waking up faster than ever before, and what used to take lifetimes can now happen in moments, if you're willing, if you're ready, if you stop long enough to listen. So listen now, not with your ears, with your whole being. Drop beneath the thoughts, beneath the feelings, beneath even the silence, and just be present. See if you can sense it, that subtle vibration, that distant hum, that frequency that feels like it's always been there waiting for you to notice. That's your origin note, and it's calling you home. What if everything you think you're losing is exactly what's been blocking your expansion? What if the people drifting away, the opportunities dissolving, the structures collapsing? What if none of that is loss? What if it's liberation? This is the 9th code, vibrational detachment. And it's the one that hurts the most because it asks you to let go of things you fought hard to build. When your frequency rises, when you start embodying these codes, reality doesn't applaud. It reorganizes, and the first thing it does is remove everything that doesn't match your new vibration. Not as punishment, as precision. The field is cleaning itself, clearing out what's held together by old frequency so new experiences can enter. But from your perspective, it feels like everything's falling apart. Relationships that felt solid suddenly feel strained. Jobs that provided security suddenly feel suffocating. Goals you worked toward for years suddenly lose meaning, and your mind panics. It screams that you're going backward, that you're losing what matters, that you need to hold on tighter, fight harder, force it back to how it was. But that's the old pattern speaking. The one that thinks control equals safety. The one that believes what you have defines who you are. The code of detachment operates on a different principle. It knows that what's leaving was never meant to stay, that what's dissolving was built on a foundation that can't support your new frequency, that letting go isn't failure, it's alignment. Thoth taught this as field purification. When the initiate's vibration shifted, everything in their life that resonated with the old identity had to go, not because it was bad, because it was complete, its purpose fulfilled. And continuing to hold on to it would only create resistance, weight, drag on the new energy trying to emerge. This code doesn't ask permission, it acts, silently, relentlessly. And what you thought was essential starts revealing itself as optional. What felt like identity starts feeling like costume. What seemed permanent shows itself to be temporary. And you're left standing in the rubble of your old life wondering who you are without all the things that used to define you. This is the threshold. The point where most people turn back. They grab onto the debris, try to rebuild what's falling, negotiate with reality to keep what's leaving, and they abort the transformation right before breakthrough, because the discomfort of not knowing who you are without your old structures feels more dangerous than staying stuck in them. But if you can stay, if you can trust the detachment, if you can let what's leaving go with grace instead of desperation, something extraordinary happens. You realize you're still here, still breathing, still existing, and you're lighter, freer, unburdened by the weight of maintaining things that no longer serve you. Vibrational detachment isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about recognizing that true connection doesn't require clinging, that real love doesn't need fear to sustain it, that authentic purpose doesn't demand control. When you're aligned, what belongs to you stays effortlessly. What doesn't dissolves naturally. And fighting that process only prolongs the pain. This code teaches you that attachment is a frequency, and as long as you vibrate need instead of wholeness, scarcity instead of trust, the field will keep creating situations where you have to learn to let go. But when you master detachment, when you can hold things loosely while loving them fully, you become magnetic. Because you're no longer emanating desperation. You're broadcasting freedom, and freedom attracts what force repels. But detachment is preparation. Because what's coming next requires you to let go of something even deeper than relationships or goals. It requires you to let go of yourself, the version you've been, the identity you've built, the story you've been telling. This is the 10th code, and it's not about change. It's about death. Symbolic, necessary, transformative death. Code 10. Lucid death. You're dying right now, not physically, vibrationally. The person you were is dissolving. The character you've been playing is ending its role. The identity you spent years constructing is being deconstructed piece by piece, and you feel it. That strange emptiness. That sense of not recognizing yourself. That feeling of being between worlds. That's lucid death. The 10th code. This isn't depression. This isn't crisis. This is transformation at the deepest level. The ego, the constructed self, the accumulation of all your stories and wounds and beliefs. It's being dismantled. Not because you're broken, because you're ready. Ready to become something new. But the new can't be born while the old still occupies the space. Thoth called this the sacred dissolution. Every true initiate had to pass through it. The moment when everything they thought they were fell away. When their name felt foreign. When their history felt like someone else's story. when they looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the face looking back. Not because they'd changed on the outside, because the inside had shifted so profoundly that the reflection no longer matched. This death doesn't announce itself with drama. It comes quietly, subtly. You wake up one morning and the things that used to excite you don't anymore. The plans that used to drive you feel meaningless. The role you've been playing feels like a costume you forgot to take off. And underneath, something else is stirring, something unnamed, something that doesn't fit the old categories. The mind fights this with everything it has, because the ego's job is to maintain continuity, to keep the story consistent, to make sure you're the same person you were yesterday. But when lucid death activates, continuity breaks. The timeline fractures, and you're left in a space where past doesn't define you and future hasn't formed yet. Just now, just this, just being without knowing who that being is. This is terrifying for the ego. It needs labels, needs identity, needs to know who it is in relation to everything else. But lucid death strips all that away, leaves you naked, raw, undefined. And in that nakedness, something profound can happen. You realize you're still here, still aware, still present, even without all the things you thought made you you. This is the moment when spiritual seeking ends, because seeking was always the ego's game. Its attempt to become better, more spiritual, more awakened. But you can't awaken to what you are by trying to become something else. You can only awaken by allowing what you're not to die. And that death is this dissolution, this falling away of everything false until only truth remains. But truth doesn't have a shape yet. That's the uncomfortable part. The old has died, but the new hasn't fully formed. You're in the gap, the void, the chrysalis where caterpillar soup is reorganizing into butterfly, and there's nothing to do but wait. Trust. Allow, because forcing the process only creates deformity. Only true surrender allows the new form to emerge whole. If you're feeling this now, if something in you is dying and you don't know how to stop it, don't. Let it die. Let it fall away. Grieve it if you need to. Honor what it was, but don't try to resurrect it, because this death is making space for rebirth. And rebirth can only happen when death completes, when the old fully releases its grip, when you stop trying to be who you were and finally allow yourself to discover who you're becoming. But even in death, even in the void, there's one thing that remains, one anchor that never dissolves, one frequency that exists before identity and after its death. The 11th code, the final key, presence. Code 11. The presence that heals. Are you here? Not thinking about here, not hoping to be here eventually, but actually here, right now, in this moment, in this breath, in this awareness, reading these words. Because if you're not, if you're already in the next thought, the next worry, the next plan, you're missing the only thing that's real. The only frequency where healing happens, where power lives, where truth exists. This is the 11th code. Presence, not as concept, as state. As the ground beneath all other codes, as the frequency that activates everything else. Because none of the previous codes work without it. You can't hear the restless call if you're not present to feel it. You can't speak with power if your awareness is scattered. You can't embody truth if you're living in memory or anticipation. Presence is the master key, the foundation, the portal through which everything else becomes accessible, and it's the simplest thing in the world. Also the hardest, because it requires you to stop, to be nowhere but here, to want nothing but this, to become so absorbed in now that past and future dissolve into irrelevance. The ancient temples didn't teach complicated techniques. They taught presence, how to be fully in the body, how to breathe with awareness, how to listen without distraction, how to simply exist without needing to become anything. because they understood that presence itself is healing. That when you're truly here, the body's intelligence activates. The mind's chatter quiets. The field reorganizes spontaneously. This is why all spiritual practice points to now. Not because now is better than other moments, because now is the only moment that exists. Everything else is memory or imagination, both useful, both important. But neither is real. Neither is alive. Only now breathes, only now pulses with creative force. Only now can receive, transform, manifest. And here's what makes presence so powerful. It doesn't require perfection. Doesn't need you to be calm or centered or enlightened. It just needs you to be. To show up fully in whatever state you're in. To feel what you're feeling without escaping it. To be present to your own experience without judgment or resistance. When you do that, when you stop running from what is and just allow yourself to be here with it, something miraculous happens. The energy that was stuck in fighting reality gets freed. The tension that was holding everything together releases. And the body, the beautiful, intelligent body, starts doing what it was designed to do. Heal. Balance. Reorganize. Transform. Presence is the most natural state. It's what you were before conditioning taught you to live anywhere but here. It's what remains when all the noise stops, when all the striving ceases, when you finally stop trying to be somewhere else and just land, right here, right now, in the only moment that ever was or will be. This is the code that completes all others, the frequency that makes everything else possible, and it's always available, always accessible. Always just one breath away. You don't need to earn it, don't need to achieve it. You just need to choose it again and again. Moment by moment, breath by breath. Until presence stops being something you practice and becomes what you are. The 11 codes have been revealed. But knowing them isn't enough. Understanding them changes nothing. These codes only activate through one thing: choice. Conscious, deliberate, moment-by-moment choice. Because every gesture is a spell. Every word is an invocation. Every thought is a vibrational command sent into the field. You're choosing right now whether you realize it or not. What you're thinking, what you're feeling, where your attention lands. All of it is choice, and all of it is creating. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you hold. And holding isn't wishing. Holding is choosing, repeatedly, consistently, until the choice becomes your frequency. Most people think spiritual choice is dramatic, choosing light over darkness, good over evil, meditation over chaos. But true spiritual choice happens in the smallest moments, in the gap between impulse and action. When anger rises and you choose to breathe. When fear screams and you choose to trust. When the old pattern beckons and you choose something new. That's the altar. That's where transformation happens. Not in the big rituals. In the tiny, invisible choices that no one sees but the field feels. And when those choices align, when what you think, feel, and do all vibrate the same frequency, you become coherent. And coherence is magnetic. It attracts what's ready, dissolves what's not, reorganizes reality around your new state. This is the real magic, not controlling the outside world, controlling your inner response to it, choosing your frequency regardless of circumstances, becoming deliberate instead of reactive, conscious instead of automatic, and with each choice, you're either reinforcing the old pattern or activating the new code. Celestial reflection. You are the sky, embodied. You've looked up at the stars searching for answers. But what if they were never predictions? What if they're mirrors? Reflections of what's already happening inside you. Written in a language few remember how to read. The ancients didn't study the sky to guess the future. They studied it to remember their mission. Every planet, every constellation, every celestial movement was showing them something about their own consciousness. Mars wasn't influencing their action. It was reminding them of the warrior frequency they came to embody. Venus wasn't making them fall in love. It was activating the love that was always there. You are the sky embodied. Every star system lives inside you. Every cosmic force pulses in your cells. When the moon pulls the tides, it's not external. It's your own water responding to its original song. When an eclipse shifts energy, it's not happening to you. It's happening through you. This is the forgotten knowledge. You're not under the influence of the heavens. You are an expression of them. A living, breathing piece of cosmic intelligence temporarily condensed into human form. And when you remember this, when you feel it, everything changes. You stop being a victim of planetary movements and become a conscious participant in the cosmic dance. Daily alignment practice. You don't need complex rituals to activate what's already inside you. The ancients knew the secret isn't gathering more knowledge. It's holding the right vibration. And that starts the moment you wake up. The first breath of the day is sacred. When you inhale consciously, you're not just pulling in air. You're pulling in awareness, setting the tone, declaring to the field, I am present. When you exhale, you're releasing what's not yours. Yesterday's worry, tomorrow's fear, other people's energy. Breathe it out. Next comes silence. Not the silence of escape, the silence of listening. 1 minute. Just one. Sitting still, noticing, feeling your body, sensing the space around you. This simple act reorganizes your field because the universe only responds to presence, not urgency. Then sound. Choose a vowel, any vowel, but vibrate it with your whole being. Let it move through your chest, your throat, your entire body. Not pretty, real. Because sound activates, sound clears, sound aligns. Finally, place your hand on your heart and speak. I am the code. Not as affirmation, as activation, as remembering, as declaring to your own consciousness, I know who I am. And what I am is awakening. This practice takes 5 minutes, but done daily, it breaks down years of programming. The breath clears, the silence aligns, the sound activates, the declaration anchors, and your field starts operating from coherence instead of chaos. The silent light. And maybe, after all the codes, after all the choosing, after all the practice, something shifts. Something you can't name, can't explain, can't even fully feel, but somehow know. It's not a thought, not an emotion, not even an experience. It's more like a recognition, a remembering. This is the silent light, the frequency beyond frequency, the state where seeking ends because the seeker dissolves, where questions disappear not because they're answered, but because they're no longer needed, where you stop trying to become and simply are. Thoth called this pure frequency, not something you achieve, something that emerges when everything else falls away, when the noise stops, when the striving ceases, when you finally realize you were never separate from what you were searching for. This light doesn't announce itself, doesn't demand recognition. It just is, quiet, steady, eternal. And in its presence, everything becomes clear. Not intellectually, but viscerally. You understand without understanding, know without knowing, are without needing to define what that means. This is where all the codes lead. Not to more information, not to greater power, but to this simple, profound, undeniable truth. You are not learning something new. You are remembering something ancient. something that's been true since before time began. You are the frequency you've been seeking, the code you've been trying to crack, the light you've been chasing. And you always were. The journey was never about arriving somewhere else. It was about stripping away everything false until only this remained. The truth of what you are. The silent light that's always been here, waiting. The activation. If you made it this far, it's not coincidence. Your field brought you here because something in you is ready. Ready to stop performing. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to remember. So now, if you feel it, if something inside recognized truth in these words, write in the comments, I am the code. I'm ready to remember. This isn't just a phrase. It's a collective activation, a vibrational seal between your consciousness and the field, a declaration that you're done sleeping, done forgetting, done living below the frequency you came here to embody. And if you want to help spread this frequency, if you feel called to support this mission, there's a link in the first pinned comment where you can contribute, or use the thanks button below. Every bit of support helps this knowledge reach those who are ready to wake up. But don't leave yet. There's one more step. A special video has been chosen for you. Click on it now. It's waiting on your screen. The next key in your awakening. The next frequency calling you forward. You are the book. You are the language. You are the code. And reality has been waiting for you to remember. Welcome home.